Welcome back to the Cubbies Crib podcast, powered by Fansided. My name is Jordan Campbell, along with my partner Jacob Meisner. We're the editors over at Cubbies Crib. And Jake, it's early, but boy, does it feel like we're quickly approaching doomsday. When we brought back the Cubbies Crib podcast, we talked that the Cubs can't win a division in April. They might lose one. And with each passing day, it seems that they're walking closer to that line. They lost 2 or 3 to Cleveland over the weekend. They lost today. Certainly hasn't been an ideal start for the Cubs.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it, I think, every week about how it was going to be really important to stack some wins early. Really rough back half of the month schedule wise. They've pretty much done the exact opposite. Eh, Trying to find a glass half full, not the greatest week to come off trying to find it, but there's just so much going wrong right now. I mean, it's only been 10 games, but it feels like 50. But especially offensively, like you have to think things are going to even out and guys are going to start clicking. But the Cubs slow start, Milwaukee jumping out to a super hot start to the season, like that, those together is a worst case scenario for Cubs fans looking to spiral. And then, but yeah, you look at what's looming. I actually jotted it down, trying to make myself feel better. It only made me feel worse. Cubs have Pittsburgh at Philly, Mets come to Wrigley, Phillies again, this time at Wrigley, at Los Angeles, at San Diego. Like, if you're going through that and you don't have Cade Horton and the offense isn't clicking, you're in trouble. It could be a really bad April if the Cubs don't start at least inching their way back toward the mean.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The Cubs aren't quite at doomsday yet. It's the first week of April. You're not going to write off the season as much as Cubs Twitter might want to already and sell at the deadline. That being said, like you said, once we hit to the middle of April, that schedule is going to turn for the Cubs. You have some winnable series right now. You had the chance to kind of get off to a hot start, stack your lead at the top of the division. Milwaukee has done that. The Cubs, meanwhile, are at the bottom of the division. And like you said, when you have the Mets coming up, the Phillies, the Dodgers, the Pirates, we talked about last spot, the better team. Scary thought. And you mentioned things that have gone wrong. Let's talk about two of the big things that have gone wrong for the Cubs over the last few days. 40% of their starting rotation is now on the IL. Matthew Boyd goes on the IL today with a bicep strains. By most accounts, it sounds like it's nothing serious. It sounds like it's something that has to do with his recovery. But the concern lies with Cade Horton. He was pulled from his start on Friday against the Guardians after just 17 pitches. There was a noticeable dip in velocity, reportedly maybe emotional walking through the clubhouse. Jake, take us back to that moment, stripping what you do for Cubby's Crib. What was your shoot from the hip reaction when it's Friday and you see all this stuff unfolding for the Cubs and Horton on the mound?
Oh, at the moment, my first thought was Cade Horton's season is over, and I'm honestly not convinced that that's not the case. The velo dip is always super concerning. His injury history factored in obviously is another layer. Yeah, I haven't heard or seen anything that makes me feel better in the 3 or 4 days since. It would just be really tough. He was so good down the stretch last year, and this was going to be the year that he went from breakout breakout piece of the rotation to ace. I mean, coming out of spring training, a lot of people wanted him to be the opening day starter. It would be a huge loss, like no question about it. And I think it would, like, the depth isn't what I'm worried about. It's more, depth can get you to October, but impact arms win in October. And if you take Cade Horton out of the equation, I don't know that the Cubs have what they need to get where they want to go.
Yeah, the latest is Horton underwent imaging today in Chicago. Depending on the speed of getting the results, the Cubs looking them over, maybe a potential second opinion. We may not hear the official diagnosis on Horton until Wednesday. Craig Counsell is already in control, someone could say. He was talking to reporters today in Tampa Bay. He said Horton's going to see multiple doctors. he tried to caution it, saying anytime there's a pitcher with an elbow, a shoulder injury, they always see multiple doctors. Not sure that's entirely the case. Case in point, Matthew Boyd has a bicep strains, and the Cubs are very clear, transparent what's going on with that. The fact that counselors kind of talking around the subject without actually addressing it, it's kind of scared. And all weekend, I was embracing the optimistic fan that's buried deep down within me. I don't pull it out often because I've been writing about the Cubs for a good part about 15 years. You and I together, maybe closer to 20 years. We've been behind the curtain. We've seen how the sausage is made. No, we're not beat writers, but when you write about any team long enough, you lose a good chunk of that fan innocence. You still root for them, but you live and die with every pitch, but you kind of know how the sausage is made. So when Horton's injury happened, I wanted to pull that fan out of me. I wanted to be optimistic. I want to be like, no, this is just the Cubs being optimistic. The problem with that, Jake, is I went down a rabbit hole last April when we were dealing with a very similar instance with Justin Steele. And initially, when Steele was placed in the IL, the Cubs were like, "Oh, we're pretty confident it's a minimal stay. We're just doing this out of precaution." Even Steele said, like, if he wanted, he could have made his next start. Fast forward a week from that, Steele has surgery and is out for the year. So I woke up to that epiphany today when I was at the treadmill at the gym, like, man, you might not see Horton ever again this season. And along those lines, Jake, let me ask you this. Is there any way that the Cubs can survive this season if Horton's not going to be in the rotation for a good chunk of it?
I'm going to go against my instincts, which is to say we're in trouble. And I always tell our daughter any day can be a good day. So let's put that hat on for a second. Yes, it's possible the Cubs still, accomplish what they want to accomplish this year, even if Horton doesn't pitch again this year. But it starts and ends with Edward Cabrera. And it means your season is riding on Edward Cabrera pitching more innings than he ever has and not fading in September, not fading in October, and living up to what he's been in his first two starts. I mean, he's given up 2 hits total in his first 2 starts. Just crazy impressive. The stuff is just disgusting. So if he keeps doing that over the course of a full season, which he's never done before, and the Cubs are without Horton, like, it kind of washes out. But then you need Colin Ray to do what he did last year, which was, basically be the unsung hero of the entire pitching staff. So you have to have him do that until Justin Steele gets back. And then you have to hope that Justin Steele can ramp up quickly and isn't on severe innings limits, pitch counts, and is still cooking come late season, postseason time. So we're stacking a lot of ifs and maybes and hopefuls in there. But even if all that breaks the Cubs away, yeah, this is the part that really will make Cubs fans feel icky about it, is you cannot be Jed Hoyer and have another Michael Soroka-esque trade deadline. If you do that, you're done. You're cooked. So, yeah, if all those things happen, Jordan, everything will be fine. It'll be great.
The land of ifs. I feel like Cubs fans, at least at some point every season, live in the land of ifs. Last year was, hey, if Kyle Tucker in the second half becomes Kyle Tucker who he was in the first half, the Cubs offense will be all right. We found out in October that that wasn't the case. I wanted to start there. I wanted to start in October. When the Cubs were acting the way they were this offseason, I thought it was clear what their intention was. They wanted to avoid the outcome that they had against Milwaukee last October. The outcome was they ran out of effective starting pitching. In game 5, a do or die moment for the team, Craig Counsell turned to a bullpen game. He avoided using Shota Managa. He was pretty honest that he just had no one to turn to. So when the Cubs went out and traded for Edward Cabrera, I was like, good. Now they have, with Justin Steele eventually coming back, ideally he's ramped up in full by the time October rolls around. Now they have a starting rotation to get you through games 1 through 4. So along those lines, I have to lean towards no, the Cubs won't be all right if Horton misses a good chunk of the season. The caveat is the trade deadline. Like you said, if there is a doomsday scenario with Horton and it's revealed here in the next coming days, I think the Cubs' need at the deadline becomes abundantly clear. I think you could make the case even before Horton's injury that the Cubs should be looking for starting pitching help. And now with Horton going on the IL, potentially for the full season, I think that becomes the obvious move. So if the Cubs survive Horton's injury, assuming it is bad, I think it's going to be due to the trade deadline and the trade for a top of the rotation pitcher to be named later. I know this is the exact same spot we were in last July, hoping it would be Cabrera at that time, hoping it would be Sandy Alcantara. But like you said, I think Jed Hoyer learned a valuable lesson last July. I think that's also shaped how he acted this offseason. I think he realized he won't admit it publicly, but I think he realized a shortcoming that was trading for Michael Soroka. He corrected that with Edward Cabrera. He was aggressive with Alex Bregman. He's been aggressive with the contract extensions. I don't think you do that and then just don't go full measure at the trade line. If you do, then that's a tough look for the front office. But if they do go full measure, that's encouraging, and that's the only way I think they could survive without Cade Horton in the rotation for the full season.
Yeah, I mean, no matter like glass half full, glass knocked over, empty on the floor, like whichever lane you want to pick, losing Horton is bad. Period.
Yeah.
Like you, I'm not really worried about the Boyd thing. He's been sharp when he's pitched. I mean, things got out of hand on opening day, but the first 3 innings he was dotting pitches, blowing guys away. So like, I'm not too worried there. I think the big question is, what does Justin Steele look like when he comes back? Can Colin Ray replicate what he did last year? And I think, again, it feels bad right now. It feels like borderline sky is falling.
Yeah.
Like especially if you go on Cubs Twitter, scroll through there, it's a dark place. But we're 10 games in, and I think that perspective is key. This is not a fun team to watch right now. Like just nothing's going right. But I saw right before we logged on, Carson Wolf on X posted last year. I want to make sure I get it right. First 10 games, Cubs bullpen ERA this year 4.50. Last year it was 5.61, and everyone thought the season was over then. As we know, picked up some reclamation projects off the scrap heap, had a ton of success stories. Caleb Thielbar, Brad Keller, Drew Pomeranz, like all these guys step up. Guys kind of, with a little more time, Counsell figured out who he wanted to plug into what role and when to deploy them best. And this is basically a whole new bullpen. That process is still ongoing. It sucks to have to watch it play out real time, but between that and the team hitting 199 through its first 10 games, like things are going to get better. There's too many metrics out there that suggest the Cubs have been really unlucky, especially guys like Alex Bregman, really unlucky. The bullpen hasn't been what they needed to. The rotation's been pretty solid. Shota had a nice bounce back start. Jameson today, 6 innings, 3 earned. Like you'll take that all day out of Tyon. So it feels really bad. It feels really, really bad right now. But I think that there are so many things in the minus column that it'll just take a few games breaking their way to kind of help everyone step back from the ledge.
Yeah, you mentioned the bullpen. That's been an obvious point of constraint with Cubs fans, given how it's looked the first 10 games of the season. As you said, very similar to last year, thanks to what Carson shared on Twitter. If you're not following Carson, by the way, you should. He's an excellent follower on Twitter. Between his pitching breakdowns, his video breakdowns, really tremendous stuff. I'm not worried about the bullpen. I think we get to this point every April where, things look shaky, things look dicey, but then, like you said, once Craig Counsell knows who's in his circle of trust, he depends on those guys. The downside to how the Cubs construct their bullpen is Counsell goes into each season not knowing who's going to be in that circle of trust because there's only 1 or 2 guys that I brought back from the previous group. So there's going to be some growing pains in April. There may even be some growing pains in May. But Counsell has proven that by the time we reach the end of the season, the bullpen's going to be good, regardless of the names in it. possible that Phil Mayton, Hobie Milner, Jacob Webb, it's possible one of those three aren't with the well, Mayton probably will because he's on a multi-year deal. But Webb, Milner, it's possible there's someone from that group that won't be with the team by the end of the season. But I'm also confident they'll find another reclamation project that steps up. So with the bullpen, I'm not worried. With the starting rotation, I am. Quickly though, let's pivot to Boyd. It was kind of a surprise when the Cubs revealed today that he was going on the IL. It's a minor thing, as we mentioned. It's nothing to do with his starts. It has to do with his recovery. He's feeling some strain in his biceps, so the Cubs are giving him some extra time off. He should be good. I know everything I just said about taking the Cubs at the word with Horton. In this case, Council was pretty transparent with what's going on with Boyd. So the fact that they were oversharing when it comes to the opening day starting pitcher, I don't think it's anything to worry about at this point. But I want to take us back to spring training. Even a few days before it, there were heavy rumors that the Cubs were going to be the team that signed Zach Gallen. At the time, many Cubs fans wondered why. It was going to cost them close to $22 million. They already traded for Edward Cabrera. They had enough pitching depth at the start of the season. If for the Cubs to make that expenditure, it didn't make sense to some Cubs fans thinking, hey, why not put that money towards an extra bet? Well, I think we're getting our answer early. I think the Cubs realize, like most teams realize, is from April to October, you can't really predict injury. So the Cubs are trying to protect against that with Gallen. It's unfortunate that it didn't work out, but it's just a reminder that even when you think you have enough pitching depth, you should probably get another starting pitcher.
Yeah, and I think if this rash of injuries, if the Horton injury and the Boyd injury, as minor as the Boyd one seems, if these happened in June, I don't think the reaction is what it is. I think it's just a combination of Cubs fans coming off. I mean, Jed Hoyer's best offseason as president. I think expectations were sky high. This is the year that the Cubs are going to knock out Milwaukee, and it still might be. Plenty of baseball left, 152 to play. It's been a perfect storm of just bad. The Seiya Suzuki injuries. He's not ready. The offense looks like crap. Could go on and on. But circling back to Gallen, I think it made a ton of sense for all the reasons you outlined. You can't ever have enough depth. We talked about it last week. The Dodgers showed that they stockpile arms like crazy, and it just always seems to work out somehow. Somebody's always hurt. They cycle the next guy in. That guy gets hurt, and it just goes round and round. But I think Gallen is still a name to keep an eye on if the Cubs don't absolutely go down in flames here in April and are buyers at the deadline. Like you said, it can't be a Michael Soroka. It needs to be a Zach Gallen or better piece that comes to the rotation to shore things up for the stretch run. He just, if Cubs fans tuned out, he ended up just signing that 1-year deal. So he's a rental. You can go get him without giving up the entire farm system. The Cubs have already done their homework on his arsenal and what he brings to the table, and they clearly feel good about it. So, like I said, the good news is the depth is there. Colin Ray, Javier Assad. At this point, we might as well just talk about him like he's Lord Voldemort. But he who must not be named, Ben Brown, he is still part of this equation, at least for now, like it or not. So like the depth is there, but the difference, and we saw it last October, is like depth is great, but you need real needle movers come those big games in October. So Gallen could be that come the deadline.
Yeah, I'm gonna give a name out there. We have a story coming out tomorrow morning on the website, so be on the lookout for that. I'm just gonna throw this name out there. It's a name Cubs fans should be familiar with. It's Sandy Alcantara. Last deadline, the Cubs were, of course, debating: do we trade for Cabrera? Do we trade for Alcantara? The biggest question that surrounded Sandy was, yes, he was a former Cy Young Award winner, but in his first season back from Tommy John surgery, the stats look brutal. He looked like one of the worst starting pitchers in the National League. The Marlins were still selling him as if he was that Cy Young pitcher. So Cubs, Red Sox, other teams just backed away from that asking price. The reason why I mentioned him is he's looked electric to start the season. He's 16 shutout innings. Yes, it's against the Colorado Rockies and Chicago White Sox. But here's the thing. he threw a complete game shutout in less than 100 pitches. Like, regardless of the team, regardless of the offense you're facing, if you're able to throw a Maddox, that deserves some attention. And given the stuff he's had in the past, it's something to keep an eye on. What makes him intriguing too is that he has a club option for 2027 at $21 million. The Cubs have Jameson Taillon, Shota Manega, Matthew Boyd, all free agents at next offseason. So if they wanted to make a move at the deadline for talent that you could also control for another season, maybe it's Alcantara. Again, nothing that's going to happen anytime soon. The Cubs are going to rely on the depth they have to get them through the Boyd and Horton injuries for now. But if we get to July, if the Marlins are out of contention, I wouldn't be shocked if the Cubs come calling.
Yeah, I mean, the fit's there for sure. No question about that. I think Jed would have to get very uncomfortable.
Yes.
Very uncomfortable. Like, you've already traded Owen
yeah.
Casey. Ian Happ's a free agent at the end of the year. Seiya Suzuki's a free agent at the end of the year. So in theory, Kevin Alcantara will finally get some runway to take one of the corner spots next year. But if you're going after Alcantara, the Marlins are asking for Jefferson Rojas. They are asking for, Alcantara. Like, those are the names that are going to come up, and you're not going to be able to get him without coming off the big names. So
no,
the fit is there. It would be awesome to see him and Cabrera back together as Cubs. Yeah, I don't know. Hats off to Jed for the offseason he had, but he has never shown that level of aggression at the deadline. And then you really start to ask, like, okay, what's the farms like? What's our long-term pipeline look like? You look at prospect rankings organizationally, and like, you're seeing Pittsburgh, Milwaukee, Cincinnati, like, you're seeing the entire NL Central sans the Cubs. So
loaded up,
a trade like that, then you're further weakening the pipeline. And I know that, like, Cubs fans are irritated with that. Like, Carter Hawkins' whole 2032 comment that he admitted at Cubs convention, that was just, he should have never put a year on it. He should have never framed it up that way. But like, that is part of building a contender. You can't just,
it has to be.
Chips. You can't push your chips in every single year and expect good things to happen, because eventually you're going to hit that point where it's like, oh man, the next 5 years are going to be brutal. Yeah, I don't know. I like the fit. Hopefully we don't even have to have that conversation come July.
Yeah, if Horton and Seo are back, that's a conversation I don't think we need to have. Let's move to the position player side of the roster. I always feel it happens at least once or twice a year. I have a story. I'm like, man, this is going to be really fitting for the moment. Today, went live a little bit recently on Cubbies Crib. I wrote that, hey, it looks like Miguel Amaya is taking over as the Cubs' primary designated hitter. He was mostly in that role over the weekend against Cleveland. He was in that role today against Tampa Bay Ray, and then against Tampa. He gets pinch hit for. Oh, there I am. He gets pinch hit for by Michael Conforto after just one at bat. I've been a big proponent of Miguel Amaya to start the season. I think he's one of the more underrated players to keep an eye on this season. I think that with the offensive improvements he's been showing since really the back half of the 2024 season, he's an important piece to this roster. In the meantime, on the other side of the coin, you have Moises Ballesteros, a bat that the Cubs have always believed in. They're always going to believe in, even regardless of what he's looked like the first 10 games of the season. There's no need to write the book on him. That being said, with Counsell's tendencies, it seems that there might have already been a demotion for the young Cubs prospect. Jake, are we seeing Counsell try and pull an early lever to get the offense out of the funk by using Amaya as a DH?
Yeah, I think it's less about what Mo has done at the plate and more about what Amaya has done. And when you only have two hitters on the roster who are batting north of 250 in Nico Horner and Miguel Amaya, like, you've got to find a way to get Amaya in there. So Ballesteros struggling gives Counsell a very easy way to do that. And like I said, the offense has just been so bad that you can't have the guy who's hitting over 400 sitting on the bench. You just can't do it.
Right.
So I think time will tell. 10-game sample size. I'm not writing off Mo. I'm not saying Amaya is going to be an all-star. Like, it's too soon for any of that. But I think Counsell knows that, this is one of those stretches where you just kind of got to bide your time and know that like today, I mean, you and I talked about it before we came on, that like the Cubs had so many balls that could have dropped, and this game today that they dropped in Tampa could have been very different. It's just not going that way right now. So hopefully Suzuki comes back, the offense starts to gel a little bit more. But yeah, it's just rough right now. And if you're Craig Counsell, you cannot defend, not playing Amaya. But apparently you can try to defend pinch hitting with Michael Conforto for him. But I'll leave that to everyone on Twitter to hash out.
We found out over the weekend that Michael Conforto shouldn't be a defensive option. And I think we're quickly finding out that he might not be an offensive option. We're not going to rehash what we talked about last podcast. I just think nothing much has changed regarding the Conforto conversation. I think we're eventually leading to him being off this roster, whether that's Friday when Saya comes back or when Tyler Austin is healthy. I just don't think Michael Conforto is going to be on this roster. But going back to the Amaya Ballesteros conversation, yeah, Council has to pull the levels that he has available to him at this moment. Right now, that means getting Amaya at bats. That's mostly going to happen with him catching and Carson Kelly having a day off. But in the meantime, while Bregman, while Horner's been hitting, but while Michael Bush and PCA are struggling, get Amaya in the lineup. He's one of your best hitters at the moment. Today, he's one of your best hitters. He needs to be in the lineup. So I really don't have any issues. Ballesteros is going to be fine. He's set at every level of the organization. I'm confident he's going to do so again at the majors. Right now, it's just all about putting your best 9 out there. Amaya's for sure one of the best 9.
Yeah, and like I said, it's got to be frustrating for Counsell. And again, there have been plenty of decisions that we've all liked to second guess here in the early going from Craig, but it's an unenviable position to be in. Like, there is so much talent on this roster, and Craig talked about that after the game today, that like, hey, we have good hitters, they're going to hit. And we heard that last year too. And I think what's really sticking with Cubs fans is we heard that for a good portion of the second half, and then it never clicked. And it was just
Right.
we kept spinning the wheels over and over, week after week, the same line from Counsell, and it just got really old. So starting off the year hearing the same thing that derailed what we thought was going to be a really impressive season. I mean, it still ended up being great, but it was short of where we thought they would get with that first half. It looked like a team that was like legit championship contenders, and fell flat in the second half. It was just a tale of two halves, and now it's like, oh, cool, more of that to start a season that we entered with such high expectations. So, yeah, you got to give Amaya at bats. You got to just you've got to know that your guys are going to produce, and they're going to produce. And it doesn't seem like it right now, but Bregman's expected metrics are going to start, coming around. PCA will figure things out. Like, there was a lot being made of his bat speed and what that could mean for his power output. And I thought his take on it was really interesting. That like, no, if I'm swinging harder, like that, I'm compensating for something. My swing is not where it needs to be. It is not something that I'm trying to actively do, and I need to get things dialed in. So he's going to be working on things. Bush is going to get going. I think it was like 15 or 17 games in last year before he hit his first homer. So again, we've seen a lot of this before. The hitting conditions have been brutal too. I don't think we can overlook that. Like at Wrigley in Cleveland, horrendous offensive conditions. So hopefully that turns here in the next couple of weeks, and we start seeing the boys string some better at bats together.
Yeah, let's end the pod with a little game of true or false. I didn't tell Jake about this, but I'm going to do a quick game. Right now, the Cubs are 3.5 games behind the Milwaukee Brewers for first place in the National League Central. Jake, by the end of the month, true or false, the Cubs will be at the top of the division.
False. See, that was easy. I like that one. No, with that strength of schedule in the back half, like I think if they can chip away and just keep it where it is now, stay within 3-4 games, you're fine. Like that's not an issue. You just can't go like 8, 9, 10 games out. But I'm not saying they're going to just all of a sudden catch fire and Milwaukee's going to start not playing good baseball, because we've seen for the better part of a decade they play great baseball. So no, that's a false for me.
Yeah, I'm going with false as well. I think you hit it right in the head. If the Cubs get to the end of April, they're still within 3.5 games of Milwaukee. I think that's the perfect spot to be, because by then you'll have clarity on Cade Horton. Hopefully, the optimistic fan of me, hopefully Horton's back. If not, you're a step closer to Justin Steele getting back in the rotation. And I think that's a big takeaway for where the Cubs want to be later this season with a healthy pitching staff, an offense that is hopefully finally producing. And if you can just be within 3 games of Milwaukee by the end of this month, I would call that a success.
For sure. Yeah. Given how the first 10 games have gone, that would be, I think everybody would be very pleased with that outcome.
Perfect. The Cubs have 2 more games in Tampa Bay on Tuesday night and Wednesday night. We'll be back with you on Thursday night ahead of Seiya Suzuki's season debut. Maybe we have the roster move by then. Maybe Michael Conforto is off the roster and we could talk about who else should be on the roster. But for now, try not to panic too much, Cubs fans. It's early. The Cubs season isn't over yet. There's still plenty of baseball left. We'll be fine. We think. Have a good night, Cubs fans.